Right then folks, welcome back to the channel. Today it's another video inspired by Brokenback Mountain and his gear sort, which inspired me to start going through my gear and trying to organise some of the older gear I've got. This isn't exactly a throwback, but this is the tent I used to use prior to purchasing the MSR Hubba Tour 1. And it's a good little tent, to be honest with you. It's not as good as the MSR, but a good little tent. So I thought I'd pitch it. It'll be the first time I've pitched it in a few years and talk you through it. It is the Luxe mini peak tent. It's a pyramid shaped tent, single pole. The weight of the tent alone is 1,050 grams, so just over a kilogram. It can be pitched using walking poles, but I've also got the telescopic pole that you can purchase for it, and with the pole it comes in at 1.5 kilograms, so a perfectly reasonable size and weight of tent. In terms of size, it is actually very roomy inside. So without further ado, we'll crack on and pitch it. And like I said, I've not opened this in a while, so hopefully everything's inside the bag, but we'll see as we go on. So let's get going, shall we? I may be a little rusty at this, like I say, it has been a while. So what we've got pegs. So the way you pitch this tent is peg 4 corners and insert the centre pole. So we'll grab 4 reasonable pegs out. It's a bit of a mishmash of pegs in here. I've obviously been and braided this for some decent pegs for one of my other tents at some point, but I'm sure we'll manage. It does pitch separately outer and inner, but you can pitch just the outer and use it as just a shelter if you wish. You don't have to have the inner pitched with it. Let's find a zip. Excuse me. So there's the front zip. That's the back. On this tent there is a front and a back in terms of where the inner pitches, and I corrected you. The way the inner will go in either side. What you need to do is these little yellow elastic bands have to be inside of the pegging point so you can get to them. I'll just make sure that the whole of the tent is actually going to be in view once I pitch it. Yeah, that looks good. Try to keep it as square as possible when you're pitching it. It'll make the finished article better. So once you've got all 4 corners pegged, it is as easy as undo the door. Get your telescopic pole. and adjust the height. And there we have it. It does have chip vents on the and it does have pegging points on the doors, so you can actually peg one door shut and just roll back. And it does have a rear of the tent. So what we'll do is I'll just finish pegging out the guy lines so you can see the whole pitched item, and I'll do a walk round and show you how the inner tent attaches from inside. Okay, see you later. So here we are for a bit of a walk round. So as you can see, it's quite square in its presentation. These yellow guy lines on the corners are ones I added for a little bit of extra stability. When you purchase it, it only comes with these green ones on the sort of waistline. It is a very good tent. Due to its shape, it sheds wind really well, and if you peg it a little better than I have at this moment in time, you can get it quite snug to the floor and cut out a lot of the actual drafts that appear underneath it. As I said, there's a door on both sides, so in hot weather you can open both doors for venting. They only zip from bottom up, not from top down. There are no bug nets inside of the actual zippered doors, which can give you a bit of a problem in places like Scotland, which is one of the reasons I upgraded tent. So what we'll do is we'll get inside it and we'll pitch the inner. So that's the inner clipped into position. Now the inner has 3 zips on it, one along the base, one follows the angle up, and one goes across that back edge to allow you ease of access for entry. So if you undo both of the zips across the bottom and the one up, you can just slide in. In terms of the inner, it is a full mesh inner. It offers very little in the way of wind protection, and I'll insert a clip of me laid in it, but I will say it is a little on the small side for me at 6'2". I did have an occurrence whereby when I was in Scotland, the mesh was actually resting on my face and I ended up with a load of midge bites the following morning when I woke up. That was one of the reasons I actually upgraded to the MSR. The new version of this tent does actually have only a half mesh inner. From the base to the halfway height is now solid material on it, I believe. Hope this has been of some use to you guys, and we'll have a quick chat about it in a more open environment. So guys, let's finish off by discussing my thoughts and opinions about the minipeak tent. When I was using this tent prior to having the MSR Tour 1, I thought it was a good tent. It had its limitations, but I really did like it as a tent, and it did some long motorbike trips with me as well as cycle touring trips. In terms of what you get a lot of room for a very small pack weight and pack size. There's ample room inside the porch for you to cook and to stash gear. The only sort of downside to the interior for me was the sleeping area being too short for me. If I was 5'10" or smaller, it'd be ideal, and I may have never bought the MSR. But at 6'2", with that mesh hanging down on my face, and I've had a couple of occasions, one in Scotland, one doing, I think it was the Trans Pennine Trail on a push bike, where I ended up with bites all down my face from midges the following morning, and I looked a right mess, and it was very irritating. Would I recommend this tent? Yeah, if this is the style of tent you're into, and particularly like if you're walking, in terms of what you get in terms of internal space for pack size and weight, particularly if you're going to be using your walking poles to pitch it, I think there's not a lot out there can beat it. In bad weather, it sheds wind really well. I've had it in some strong winds, not really strong winds, but sort of gusty 40-50 mile-an-hour winds, and it stood up well with the addition of the guy lines. The only drawback in wind is if you don't pitch it tight to the ground, you get a lot of draft coming under the tent, and with it being an all mesh interior, that makes your sleeping area very drafty. On the newer versions of this, that sleeping area is half material, half mesh, which will probably get around that issue. But having said that, when I was on a motorcycle trip in northern Spain, and it was really hot, blisteringly hot, pitching it a little higher off the ground and having that draft blowing over you through the night was an absolute godsend. It made it bearable and made it so as I could sleep in relative comfort. So it's positive and negative. If you are going to use this in cold weather, and because it's so drafty, I would recommend uprating your sleeping bag by a season, because that draft really does take any heat out of the tent. In bad weather, you can just about sit inside at the very apex in one of the Helinox style chairs. I have done that on rainy days. Sat there and read a book out of the weather, and you can sort of half unzip the front, and it leaves you a nice area for cooking in the front. Will I ever use this tent again? I'm not sure. I doubt it, but you never know. Now I've got the MSR Tour 1, this is more or less obsolete in the collection. It may find its way into the handlebar bag on a cycle touring trip, but I can't see it ever going on any motorcycle trips with me again. I hope this has been of some use to you guys, this video. If it has, I'd appreciate a like and or subscribe. And just a shout out to Broken Back Mountain for inspiring a couple of these videos with his gear sort, making me get off my backside and start sorting through my gear. Okay, see you later guys, and remember, keep on dabbling.